Hello, welcome to a new podcast of ASML Now. In this episode, I want to discuss a couple of things with you. I'm going to review the Q4 results, and also I'm going to review some things the CEO Peter Winning said, which were quite interesting. However, there's one thing I want to do first. I want to introduce my new partner in this podcast, Kitso. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Kitso and I'll be joining the show.
How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm very curious. I don't know a lot about ASML. I've read just a little bit, so I'll be asking you a lot of questions.
Yeah, that's really awesome because I figured out I did the first 7 episodes individually, with myself. And obviously it's just a lot better to have a conversation partner.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Looking forward to joining you more often.
Good.
Well, I'm quite curious. You just mentioned that we're going to be talking about the Q4 results of the ASML company for last year, 2023, and you said that they were record-breaking. What actually propelled ASML into a record-breaking stage for 2023?
Yeah, good question. So after the Q4 results, the stock reached an all-time high. And basically, there's a couple of things that made that happen. Something that's very important with the stock analysis and the stock price of ASML is basically the order inflow. Because for a machine of ASML to be produced, it takes 18 months. So in that way, when someone does an order now, it's booked as revenue, but it's going to be delivered only after 18 months. So the order inflow basically gives the best insight into the future revenue of ASML.
So then what you mean by the order inflow is the backlog of machines that still need to be produced.
Yeah, exactly that. And it was exactly that order inflow that was at a record high of 9.2 billion euros. Next to that, also the gross margin increased to 51.4%, which was slightly above the expectations of analysts. Additionally, the net income rose with 40%, and that combination, all the numbers were good. And I think in the broader stock market and the broader chip market, this was really the confirmation that the dip in chip demand is over.
Yeah.
So it was also kind of a relief rally that processed into the ASML stock price,
Yeah, and I remember from last year, there was a lot of news picking up with regards to artificial intelligence, and just knowing a bit about ASML, they do lithography machines. They produce lithography machines, and a lot of those are actually used to build the machines required to power up AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think most listeners know this, but obviously ASML make the machines that produce the chips. The chips that are used for AI applications. So when you see demand for AI applications rise and you go down back the supply chain, you're always going to end up at ASML. And the most complex machines of ASML, the EUV machines, they are the most expensive, they have the highest margin, and they cost the most money. It's exactly those machines only that can produce the chips needed for AI. In that field of EUV, that's where ASML has its monopoly. So also the growth perspective for ASML is just crazy because AI is still at its beginning, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna explode, and with that, there's this huge expectation that also ASML is gonna explode also.
And what you're saying with regards to these EUV machines being the most expensive machines that they produce, there are other machines that they produce that are not so expensive. I'm sure there are other chips that are that need to be produced. Maybe if I'm thinking, even my toothbrush has a chip nowadays, and those are all produced by one of the lithography machines of ASML. But I'm sure that machine is not the most expensive that they would sell, right?
No, true, and that demand is also going forward in a very stable way. But I think the stock market is mostly looking to this EUV segment, right?
Yeah.
Another good thing that showed up in the Q4 results was that all of the customers of ASML ordered the new EUV machines.
Oh yeah.
So you're not talking only about the most richest capital big clients like Samsung or Intel. It's their entire base of customers has ordered the EUV machines now, and that kind of proves that the demand for EUV is now broadly spread in their customer base, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a stable, growing demand of the most expensive machines that they're selling.
And how long do these machines last for? Do customers need to order new machines quite frequently? Let me give an example of what I'm talking about. Back in the day, if you had a laptop, you would know that maybe within 3 years, you need to buy a new laptop because it is depreciated, there's new technology out and such things. So what is the estimated lifespan of one of these machines?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Without going too much into detail, what you're already seeing now that ASML is bringing out updated versions of the newest EUV machine already. So actually already now that process that you are saying is already taking place. And within the global chip market, there's such a fierce competition to come out on top that only the most capital intensive companies like Samsung and Intel, they can afford those newest machines. But at the same time, they don't have a choice. If they want to stay on top of the game and come up with the newest products and the newest innovations, they need the latest machines of ASML. Because if they don't buy the newest machines, someone else will, and they might lose their competitive edge. And that's the last thing they want.
Of course.
Basically what I said, the record inflow was very positive, although for the next year, being 2024, they basically don't expect any revenue growth.
Okay.
And you know, that's kind of weird with the story that we're telling now. But one of the causes of that is the export restrictions from China. What you saw happening in Q3 and Q4 of 2023 is that the demand from China was increasing a lot. In Q3, 46% of all the sales came from China. And it was exactly because the export restrictions would get into effect after Q3 and even in Q4. So they were like hamstering all of the machines that they still could get from ASML.
You use the word hamstering. Well, that's particularly interesting because I know that's a particular Dutch word to use, which I saw in the news in the Netherlands.
Really? Is it a Dutch word?
Yeah, hamstering. Well, it's a Dutch expression. Let me say it that way.
How would you explain it in English then for our international listeners?
They're hoarding.
Hoarding.
Yeah, they are taking as much as they can, and they are hoarding all the machines as quick as they can. Well,
do you actually know where hamstring is coming from?
No, but I thought it was such a funny thing during the pandemic.
No, yeah, well, like obviously during the pandemic, but we have our main supermarket of the Netherlands called Albert Heijn.
Yeah.
And they always had these for sale weeks.
Okay.
And they used these cartoons in commercials. And in the commercial, you had these hamsters. And they were going all around the store and buying 1 + 1 for free. And they made it like a verb, hamstering, you know? Because a hamster also buys a lot of stuff for his hibernation, right?
Yeah.
So that's where it's coming from.
Oh.
But obviously I didn't know it wasn't an English word.
Well,
Sorry
no,
for that.
it's not an international, not the word, but like the phrase, the way to think about it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so as I said, you know, they say around 10 to 15% of the revenue of ASML is coming from China, but obviously the last 2 quarters, that was a lot more. So for this year, there's always new demand. So there's enough customers who basically want a machine from ASML. So ASML can still sell all of the machines that they're able to make with the current production capacity to other customers outside China, basically. But obviously, in the last 2 quarters, China did cause a spike in sales that is falling away now. You know, as I said in another episode of this podcast, the geopolitical implications, I think we're just at the beginning of that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's another thing that I want to discuss with you, and it's a thing that the CEO, Peter Wenning, by the way, who's leaving, it was his last result presentation, like ever. He's meant a lot for ASML, and it's really a big thing that he's leaving. And he actually made a remark referring to the current political situation in the Netherlands. He said, if we can't grow here, we will grow somewhere else. Do you know what he's referring to?
I'm not too sure. Please enlighten me. With the current political situation in the Netherlands, I know that Geert Wilders just won the election, and his party is mainly about curbing down immigration into the Netherlands.
Yeah, exactly. So in November of 2023, we had national elections in the Netherlands, and right-wing party who was really anti-immigration and anti-Islam became the biggest party by far in the Netherlands. And the main thing that they and also the other right-wing parties want to achieve is to curb immigration. And that's a serious thing, especially for ASML, since ASML has around 22,000 to 23,000 people working in Veldhoven, the main headquarters. And 40% of those people are non-Dutch. They're expats, basically.
Wow.
And they're coming from literally from all over the world. Like not just Europe, but literally all over the world. So if really the government wants to curb immigration and they want to stop providing visas to people from outside the EU, for example, it's gonna pose a serious challenge for ASML, because without the people, they literally can't execute and grow in the Netherlands, you know? And that's why he was saying that. It's a very serious thing, because it's not just about people only. In the other episode, I explained you guys about the supplier network of ASML, right?
Yeah.
So even though they have a lot of suppliers worldwide, the main group of suppliers, of the 5,000 suppliers, are still located in this local ecosystem around Eindhoven, basically.
In the Netherlands.
In the Netherlands, exactly. And it's one of the characteristics that unique ecosystem that I talked about that makes ASML so unique and also so competitive. It is exactly that ecosystem, the cooperation between governments, between companies, between local governments and ASML that makes it quite strong.
Yeah.
But obviously, they still need the people from all over the world. They still need the brightest minds, the engineers, everyone, and we just can't get them only from the Netherlands or Europe.
Yeah.
So if it really becomes serious, it really might pose a serious threat. And that's exactly why the CEO was mentioning this in the Q4 results.
Yeah.
Like it's not a small thing.
Yeah.
What the right-wing parties want to do, they want to curb the tax advantage that expats get. Can you tell me something more about it? Because after all, you're an expat too.
Yeah, I'm an expat. I came in from South Africa in 2016. Back then, there was an expat ruling that you could get a 30% ruling, which means that when you get your gross income of 100%, you will only get taxed on 70%. And you would receive the other 30% of your gross income without paying tax. That ruling was, when I came in 2016, it was supposed to last for 8 years. There are other advantages to the ruling, like being able to present your foreign driver's license and convert it back to the Dutch driver's license.
When you came to the Netherlands, did you came with that tax advantage in mind already?
No. When I came to the Netherlands, I was honestly looking for a job. That's all I wanted. I had just finished my articles in South Africa, training towards becoming a chartered accountant, and my colleagues were posted in other countries such as the US, England, and all the other countries, and I was fortunate enough to be placed in the Netherlands, but it was only for like a 3-month contract to gain international experience. And I worked hard in order to get another 2-year contract, and it moved on from there, because I thought if I go back to South Africa after the 3 months contract, I'll probably have to look for another job. So I might as well look for a job where I am, which at that point was the Netherlands. I had no idea about the 30% ruling until I got here, and my intention was not really based on the 30% ruling. My intention was to gain more skills, gain more experience, and just make my mark in the world.
Yeah, so like in that way, also for a lot of expats working for ASML, it's still like a big thing that they want to work for ASML probably, right?
Yes.
They're not gonna come here just for the tax advantage.
No, it's like working for the biggest companies that you know in the world, and also working for an international company that is well recognized everywhere in the world, so that you can get that advantage. Not only does it boost your CV after you've worked on such a company such as ASML, when you go looking for a job elsewhere, people are definitely gonna look at your CV seriously and consider you as a very, very capable candidate for that job that they've advertised.
Yeah, so we discussed, the right-wing victory of the right-wing parties in the Netherlands, and sometimes it may seem, quite discriminatory the way that people are voting, but we are both living in an area where ASML is present. Like, we're both living very close to Veldhoven, of the headquarters of ASML. And what we do see happening in the housing market, for example, is all these expats with that 30% tax advantage outbidding the local people for buying houses, right?
Yeah, but also when you come in as an expert that is able to buy a house, it means that you're coming in at an age where you've actually have savings. Because if you're coming in as a young person who's just coming from university, chances are you don't have those savings. But because you've worked hard, you've worked for longer from wherever country you're coming from, you've probably also sold your house in that country. You obviously gonna try to bid more in order to have a secure life. There's nothing worse than coming into a foreign land and not being secure about anything.
Yeah, I get you. Like, it makes sense. But do you see the struggle that is happening right
definitely.
now in the market? So on the one side, we have this huge success of ASML. We have a lot of suppliers that are also thriving on the success of ASML. We have a booming housing market. We have a booming local economy.
But that doesn't mean that the locals, the people who are working for the local companies, have the same level of income.
No, right?
Or that they
are profiting as much.
No,
as ASML and their employers, or their employees.
Definitely not. Most people are getting the salaries that they've been getting for a long time, and maybe it's increased by, if they're lucky, maybe 5% per year.
Yeah, we're talking about policemen, nurses, everyone in the local economy, basically.
People who work at restaurants.
Yeah, and like, also for me personally, like, I see that struggle, right? Like, it's a difficult thing because ASML is like a huge success and overall everyone is happy with it. But the more successful they become, the more also the other sides of the coin you are starting to see from it.
That's true.
And basically, I think that is reflected in the election outcome that we saw in November.
Yeah, the locals are not able to keep up with the rising prices of the houses. They are not able to live the way that they imagined they would be able to live at a certain age. And there's a structural shortage of houses in the Netherlands. And they can't build as fast as the demand is building up. And to top it all off, you also have kind of like environmental regulation that keeps coming up, curbing the construction industry and stopping a lot of constructions from continuing in order to reduce the level of greenhouse gases that are emitted by the construction industry. That only increases the shortage of housing that is already quite prevalent in the Netherlands.
Yeah. Now, good point, and I think very urgent in this way. It's actually now that you're seeing, and also ASML is only now realizing that they have a very central role in the Dutch economy and also the Dutch society. So they also admitted basically in some interviews that their political radar, also before the entire export control thing initiated by the USA, they're only developing it right now. Like, they're basically running and feeling the limits of their growth.
Yeah.
on a local level, on an international level, also on a national level. And they are also developing in that in a way that they are building government connections. They are increasing their lobbying capacity in the USA. So like in that way, they're still kind of a startup, considering in relation to the importance in the world economy that they have and in the entire semiconductor supply chain, right?
Yeah.
So for us, that's also really interesting to see how that entire state versus ASML government is going to work out in the future. It's going to be a very relevant point to further look into.
Oh, that's very interesting. I can't wait to listen to more of your discussion with regards to ASML and its growth and how it's doing each time, and just hear how things are developing locally in the Netherlands as you see it, and how ASML is affecting the global economy.
Yes, all right. Thank you for this podcast. To close off, I want to summarize a couple of things and I want to look into what we are looking next time.
Okay.
So to summarize, we've seen that ASML has reached an all-time high of somewhere around 882 euros, 882 euros in their stock price. And what's also very interesting, I've taken a look at the investments plans of the big tech companies in the USA.
Yeah.
Because essentially that's where the demand for the ASML machines is coming from, right? So if you look to the investment plans of Google, Facebook, especially in the field of AI, you can kind of make an estimation of the demand that ASML is going to get from these kind of companies, with the chip fabs in between. And also last week, all of these companies came with their Q4 results and also their plans for the future. For example, Microsoft, according to Jeffries, in the next year, they're gonna invest $50 billion in AI.
Wow.
That's an increase of 57% in terms of investments compared to last year. And that's just Microsoft. Alphabet, also Google, they're gonna invest $39 billion. Meta, Facebook, is gonna invest $37 billion. Amazon, $43 billion. All of these plans, all of these crazy huge ass investments, they're gonna need the machine that only one company can make, right?
Yeah.
And it's the most advanced EUV machines of ASML.
Yes.
So in that way, also all the stock analysts have increased their stock targets for ASML. Although I have to say, that's always a little bit, how do you say that? Water under the bridge, right? First the stock price rises,
And then
they increase their stock goal, you know, even though a lot of companies have increased it above 1,000 euros now and they're like on 800 something. So like there's still quite some room for improvement. And also they keep increasing their dividend. So stock price might look high if you look to price earnings ratio. At the same time, they keep increasing their dividends, and basically the future demand, it's going to be even bigger than we can imagine now. That's what I think. And that's why I am emphasizing the limits of growth that ASML is experiencing right now.
Yeah.
Because they already have that huge backlog, what you called. A couple of months ago, we went to the site of ASML. We videoed expansion plans, right?
Yes.
Like they're buying up all the houses, they're buying up sports clubs, everything around their current headquarters. They're basically buying up just to increase their production capacity. But in the Netherlands, that's something difficult. You know, you need an agreement with a lot of stakeholders. There's nature, there is environmental regulations. So that's also something to look forward to in a way to see how they're going to deal with these challenges, right? Like,
Indeed.
can they expand as much as they basically want to and as much as they need to fulfill the demand of basically the entire world?
Yeah.
So that's something we're going to look into the coming year. I want to thank you for participating in this podcast and I hope to see you next time.
I'm looking forward to it. I learned so much, and I can never say that I'm going to become an ASML expert, but I'm looking forward to learning as much as I can from you and also understanding the stock much better. And I hope that more listeners will join us.
To our listeners, we would really like to hear your opinion and also hear about the topics that you maybe want to hear more about. And then we can see if we can dig into one of those topics. So please reply if you like this podcast and please come up with ideas if you have any suggestions. Thanks.
Thank you.